Micah Siva, welcome to Beautifully Jewish.
Thank you.
It is such a joy to have you here.
Yeah, so Dubai chocolate has been popular for a few months now, and there was a pastry chef in Dubai who I guess made it happen, and it's essentially like a pistachio cream and this katafi, kind of like shredded phyllo pastry that's toasted, and they fill a chocolate bar with it. So I bought this on Amazon for $7 for the box. And it's really just a filled chocolate bar that's filled with the pistachio cream and toasted shredded pastry that we toast in butter. So it's really not that complex. And so why they sell it for $30 is beyond me. And so I love Hamantashen. I talk a lot about it in my book and just in things that I do. I've been written about in regard to my love of Hamantashen, because it was something I always grew up making. It was something that was a big ordeal in our family. And I've always just tried to play around with the different flavors. So in my cookbook, I have a vegan funfetti Hamantashen that's filled with like a cashew cream, because March is my birthday month. And so it's kind of like my own birthday cake for myself. But I've made everything from everything bagel cream cheese to goat cheese, sesame cream cheese, oh my God, Hamantashen, it's bedtime. And this year, Dubai Chocolate Hamantashen. And then I just did a Samoa, like the Girl Guide cookies, a rainbow cookie one, and a triple pistachio one. So pistachios in the dough, chopped in the filling, and then pistachio cream in the filling. These new ones especially are all on my Substack. I just started a Substack, which is kind of like a newsletter / blog, just a little bit more, I think, interactive than a typical blog. So definitely check those ones out. And these ones are my favorite ones I've made. And it was sad because I made this beautiful batch and I put some on a plate to defrost so my husband and I could eat them one night. And my rascal of a dog jumped up and ate 8 of them. And those were the only ones I had left. So we were really bummed. So when I told my husband that I was doing this tonight, he was actually very excited, because not so excited because now he's on baby duty for bedtime, but then he got excited that we would have these again to add to our Purim spread for next week. So we can get started on them. This one's a little bit of an untraditional dough. A lot of the Dubai chocolate Hamantashen that I'm seeing now are kind of like a classic vanilla cookie with the filling then dipped in chocolate, but I just make like a really chocolatey cookie instead.
Thank you for that.
My pleasure. So we're going to get started. And as we go, I'll also give some tips about making Hamantashen as well, because it's something that I make a lot of. I think this is my 6th batch in the past couple weeks. So we should get started. And if people have questions, put them in the chat. I'm often looking in there to see if I can explain anything better, and hopefully you guys will feel empowered to make them, or you can just buy them, because I don't care how you get your Hamantashen. You do you. I think actually one of my neighbors is on. So if you're here, knock on my door after. Not yet. She told me she was going to sign up. So I told her, don't even make any, just come over after. Okay, so let's make some Hamantashen. You can use a stand mixer or a food processor. I will use either, but I already made a batch of dough and I just didn't clean it. So I'm just going to use it again, because that's what today feels like for me. So we are going to cream some butter and sugar. You can definitely do a carb Hamantashen, but if you don't need to, based on what you're eating, there's really no substitute for delicious butter. So I'm going full butter today because we're a vegetarian family, so we don't have to think about carbs. So
Unsalted butter?
yes, I am doing unsalted butter. I usually have a butter for like spreading, and that's a salted butter. And then my unsalted butter is what I use for baking. There's really no like standard amount of butter or of salt that people put in butter. So it's better just to add your own. So that's 1 stick or 1/2 cup. and then 2/3 cup of white sugar. And I'll just give those a mix. I still have the plastic on this. It's new. It's gonna stay. It's stuck now. So we'll cream those, and then we're gonna add 1 egg once that's nice and fluffy. So just a minute or two.
That's the world's quietest stand mixer.
It is very quiet. I just bought it for myself for Hanukkah because my other one it had seen better days, and it was like walking off of the counters every time I made challah because it was so off kilter. So it is, thank you so much. It was worth every penny. And we just redid our kitchen, so I wanted one that matched. So I'm gonna put 1 egg in here. Roughly $8,000 worth of eggs. And some vanilla. You don't measure vanilla with anything but your heart and how you feel, so that's what I did. Probably a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. Gonna make sure that this is nice and incorporated. Gonna grab a spatula actually just to move some of that butter down. You don't want to rush this process either, because this is how you're going to make sure that you incorporate some air into your dough and also get your sugar dissolved as well. So don't rush this part. That's why in a food processor, it's also kind of nice because it makes really quick work.
So it's sort of the opposite of like pie dough, where you don't want to overhandle it. You want to you want to manhandle this a little bit.
Do want to manhandle it more. And if you think about it, we're going to be rolling this out a few times. So there's no avoiding rolling it out quite or manhandling it quite a bit. And there's so much cocoa powder in this recipe that compared to like a typical Hamantashen dough, you're not really going to get that excessive amount of gluten formation either. So this looks nice to me. It's nice and incorporated. Let's add our dry ingredients. So we've got 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour and 2/3 cups of cocoa powder, which is quite a bit. I really want this to be like dark and rich in color and taste. And then I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Put those in together. So we're going to mix this on low, and we're going to just keep an eye on it. We don't want a dough that's too wet. Typically, I'll let it sit in the fridge for about 30-ish minutes. I'm not going to do that tonight just because of time. So we can also add a little bit of water, about a tablespoon at a time, starting with 1, and you won't need more than 3. So I'll put that on low to let that mix. With some butter. So it's not going to be a very wet dough at this point. That's why we're going to want to add some water. But if we make it too wet, we're gonna run into some sticking when we're rolling it out. So we kind of want that sweet spot of it's pliable but not crumbly. This dough I found also is not very prone to spreading either, which is nice. Typically, if you're doing a butter-based dough, I find that they spread less than with an oil-based dough. So if you find that your Hamantashen are just spreading and becoming disasters, try a butter-based dough instead of an oil one. So if you can see in here, it's getting pretty dark. I'll show you. So it's getting pretty rich in color. We don't want a pale chocolate dough. We're going for dark chocolate in this recipe. A lot of the Dubai chocolate ones I've seen are more milk chocolate, but that's not what I like. And I have to eat these for me. So I wanted this dough to be nice and dark.
Love it.
So we're just about there. Does anybody have a favorite Hamantashen filling? I usually like to get a pulse on what people will make. Obviously, we're doing something a little different.
It's funny, I'll speak to that while we wait for answers, because you posted the apple pie. My daughter's been wanting apple pie, and then you posted apple pie this week in your Instagram. And I was like, how is she reading us? Like, she knows exactly what we want. I feel like if I had this, the Samoas and the apple pie, I would have Hamantashen all year.
Amazing. I mean, I also just love Hamantashen all year, but I'm biased because this is what I do for a living. So I don't even think I need to add much water to mine, honestly, and it will always depend on how you've measured your flour, how packed down your cocoa powder is, the freshness of your egg. There's 1,001 different things that can dictate, like when you're making challah, how much water, if you need a smidgen more flour. All of these things can impact the moisture of your dough. So this is what it looks like right now. You can see it's nice and pliable. It's not crumbling. It's like Play-Doh in my hands. So I'm happy with how this looks. I am just going to take it out of here and form it into a disc while I make our filling. So I'll give it a minute or two to do its thing.
We have some flavor preferences came in. We have Allison said team apricot. Nancy also said fresh apricot and Nutella. Patty said cherry, which I've never thought about. And Deborah said prune.
No poppy seed lovers?
I love a poppy.
Oh, I grew up with poppy as the elite filling, but we had a yeasted Hamantashen, so it wasn't a cookie base, it was a bread base. It's more of a old country Ukrainian Soviet Union way of making Hamantashen. So that's what I had growing up, and those were my favorites.
Wild. We heard Elizabeth said she wants to try date paste. Have you tried that?
I have not. I've done date syrup and tahini before together to kind of make a little paste type thing, but not date paste on its own. That's a great, sounds delicious. We still have a week to do all of these things. So how lucky are we? Okay, so now let's make our filling. So I've got a little broccoli stem from dinner. That's good.
Can't see it.
Yeah. So I've just got some butter in a small saucepan. I'm going to let that melt, and then I'll add my shredded phyllo dough. And we just want to make sure it's nice and toasted because that will bring out some natural caramelization. It'll be a little bit nutty, and this will give us some nice crunch in our filling. So I'll wait for that to melt. And I'll show you, I bought just a pistachio. It's like a pistachio cream or butter. I just got it. You can get it at most grocery stores, specialty grocery stores, Amazon, anywhere. Do not get the just plain pistachio butter. You need one with sugar in it. If you use a filling that doesn't have sugar, it's more likely to seep out of the edges. So if you use like a low sugar jelly or jam, you're more likely to get seepage of that filling compared to like higher sugar jam or jelly. So when I use jam or jelly in my Hamantashen, I'll use like a Bon Mama because they're nice and high sugar content and nice and thick as well. So I am using this one. I know it's backwards, but I think I got a 2-pack on Amazon for $17. And I used one for my last batch and this one for this batch. You can probably get it cheaper at other places. I actually just saw that Walmart came out with one, which is like much bigger and $5, but you can't pay me to go out of the house to shop and also to Walmart. So I bought it on Amazon so I could stay home because that's my preferred way of getting things. So my butter is melted now, and I'm just gonna put in my phyllo dough. Get a little spoon and toast that lightly. Perfect. Thanks, Tanya. It doesn't have to be this brand necessarily. It can be, there's so many pistachio brands. You could even use a Nutella in place of it and still do the crunchy filling as well. But this one has been delicious. And I definitely have like scooped out the extras on my fingers afterwards.
Sounds delicious.
It is very good. And I've always been such a pistachio lover. We were in Greece this summer and there were just so many pistachio treats to be had. We brought like this big box of pistachio butter cookies home and they all melted into each other because it was so hot. So it was just like a chunk that we would like chip away at with basically an ice pick and try to make it last as long as we could. So this one, anytime I'd see anything with pistachio, it's always been my favorite thing. So yeah, finding this pastry in Armenian and Greek grocery stores in the freezer. I store mine in the freezer, and you could probably get it at some of those specialty stores. But if you can't find it, then Amazon was an easy, I think it came the next day for me. So we're letting this get nice and toasty. And what we'll do with this is we're going to mix this pastry with our pistachio butter. So I have about a 1/4 cup of this paste of the phyllo. I just don't want it to burn. And I'm going to transfer it to a little bowl. And we'll add about a 1/2 cup of our pistachio butter. Turn this off, move it to the side.
Serafima said her aunt always made yeast-based Hamantashen back in Russia.
Yeah, that's what my grandmother and my great-grandmother did. And so that's what we always had growing up. And I've learned that it's not easy to find them outside of someone's home. And so I have a batch of yeasted poppy seed ones. I write for the Jewish News of Northern California. So I just did a recipe for yeasted poppy seed Hamantashen for them this year for my Purim one, because I feel like if you grew up with them, there's nothing better. But if you don't know what we're talking about, we sound crazy. And I've never seen one in a kosher bakery. I don't know if anyone has by them, but I've never seen them being sold anywhere. I've only ever procured them at my grandmother's house or in my own kitchen. So it feels like a missed opportunity because they're so delicious. But maybe I'll just be the dealer for North America.
Love it.
Yeah, let's get our dough rolled out. So I'm just going to generously flour my counter. And I like to do half of my dough at a time. So I'll just tear it for us.
Wow, that dough is so dark.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's so chocolatey. So we toasted a 1/4 cup of the pastry, Elizabeth. So we are going to put it here. And I discovered this year the best way of cutting and shaping Hamantashen that I feel like I've been misled my entire life. So I watched a TikTok video of a kosher bakery making Hamantashen, and I discovered that they don't cut them in circles. They cut them in hexagons like a beehive, and it makes it so much easier because you don't have to roll your dough out 1,000 times with all those circular scraps, and it makes it really simple to fold them. So I'll use this.
Brilliant. There's no waste.
No, there's no waste. So I can link this as well, because this has been life-changing for someone who makes so many Hamantashen, because I do this for work. This has been the best thing I've ever purchased as well. I'm obsessed with it. So I'll show you how to use it. And I think that was the first good thing I got out of TikTok ever, was seeing this video of a bakery cutting their Hamantashen with this. So I like to make my dough about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thickness. It really is dependent on, that's a little too much flour, on how much cookie you like. So I'll get this nice and thin. This dough, because of the high cocoa content, is a little bit more fragile than your typical. Again, because the cocoa content makes it so that there's just a little less gluten, and gluten is really just the protein that binds our dough together and keeps it there. So gluten's not a bad word. It's just naturally found in our flour to help bind. So I also like to just run my hand over, because then you can kind of feel if there's any lumps or bumps. So I feel a little thickness over here. Feels a little bit better. So now
everyone wants all of your products. I'm getting DMs along the way about your mixer, about the rolling pin, about
I can send you a link to
okay.
This is my favorite kind of rolling pin. It's just a French taper. I have all of the other rolling pins as well, but this one I just find when I use one like this was my grandmother's. how am I supposed to clean in there? There's always something that gets stuck in there. And then after I wash it and I go like this, water just gets everywhere. So I like the one piece French taper rolling pins.
I feel like that's a piece of art for your wall.
Pardon?
I feel like that's a piece of art for your
Yeah,
wall.
exactly. It's not for use. It's
Yeah.
for decoration and memories, perhaps. I broke that one. So I love that I don't have to take out all of these like little circles of dough. They're so nicely cut into little hexagons.
This makes me really want to do this. Like just seeing you do this, 'cause I hate the whole cutting and re-rolling and then the dough gets mushy and it's like this is
Exactly. So we'll do that maybe once or twice with all of our dough, but that's not too bad, truthfully. Because look at how little waste there was. I swear my life changed the second I bought this thing. Do I have any advice for making gluten-free hamantashen or parve and no dairy? So yes, I do, especially for the no dairy ones. The ones in the book are vegan, so there's no dairy. You can use a non-dairy butter if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're looking for a brand recommendation, I like Miyokos brand, Miyokos, Miyokos. I think that their non-dairy butter is the best one. Gluten-free, I would use like a classic dough. So maybe not a chocolatey one because it's a little bit more crumbly already, but like my classic vanilla dough, and just use an all-purpose gluten-free flour blend. Don't get funky trying to mix things together. You need kind of some of those ingredients that you'd find in a flour blend. I like the Bob's Red Mill one and King Arthur flour, 1 for 1. Ones that those are my preferred ones. And with any recipe that you might be altering in any way, just do one thing at a time. So maybe don't make it vegan and gluten-free at once. Maybe make it so that you try one with gluten-free flour and that's the only thing you change. Then the next time, if that one worked well, change the next thing and go from there. Sometimes we have so many good intentions to change things, and then we change too many things and we can't pinpoint why it didn't work. So one thing at a time. So, okay, so we already have all of those rolled out, which is insane. Usually when I'm like, I don't know who makes this, but they should pay me, because usually when I do a class like this, I have to roll out half of my dough because it's like a little tedious before the class starts, but I don't have to. So I feel like this is the best thing that ever happened to me besides my, but a close second. So we're just gonna roll this one out again. I will cut one in a circle, just if anyone wants to see how I fold my hamantashen. And for my circle, I will use this. You don't need anything fancy to cut a circle, of course. I usually just use the top of a cup, but I'll use this little bowl today. Perfect. And I'll show you that one later. So I'll just keep cutting with my little honeycomb. One thing that I do use to make sure that all of my edges are sealed is I will use water and sometimes a cornstarch slurry. So about 1 tablespoon cornstarch to 2 tablespoons of water. And I'll often use that as the glue to keep my pinched edges together. So that's one way to make sure that our hamantashen don't open, because that seems to be everyone's main concern when it comes to making their own hamantashen. Almost done with my dough. Perfect. And we'll do one more roll. So this year for Purim, it's my son's first year in daycare, and he's at a Jewish daycare here. I live in the Chicago area. And so he has to go to school. We call it school. He's 15 months, but I'm sure he's learning something in costume next week. So I bought him a little tomato costume.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going as like seeds and vegetables. as a
Aw.
family, which will be pretty cute. So I'm going to paint faces at his daycare next week. Because no other moms volunteered to paint faces. And I was like, I'm creative. I could paint hearts on 2-year-olds, and it's not like they'll know.
I volunteered for everything that I could do because, yeah, those are such special things. Good for you.
Yeah, even my parents are coming to visit next week, and I signed them up too to volunteer. They don't know it yet. They said they wanted to spend more time with him. So it's like, well, now you can spend time with him and his 8 little best friends at daycare.
You might need a little painting clinic before you go.
Yeah, I think I might need to just give my parents some Tylenol before we go, and they'll be ready. Okay, so all of our dough is cut, which is exciting, and that will be for snacks later. I'm just gonna move this out of the way. Okay, so let's fold some Hamantashen. So here's all of our beautiful dough, just hanging out together. First, I'll do a circular one because that's probably the most common Hamantashen that you guys might be doing. And I'm just going to pull this down a little so you can see a bit better. How's that?
Great.
A bit better? Perfect. Okay, so the most important thing that you should have is a teaspoon measure. You don't want to put anything more than a teaspoon of filling into your dough. That is plenty. Otherwise, you risk exploding or opening. There's no better way to say that. So I've got a teaspoon of my filling just right in the center. And then you can use the cornstarch slurry like I mentioned. I'm just going to use some water. So I've got a bit of water in here. And I'm going to run my fingers all around the edges. We're also relying on the fact that there's some excess flour from rolling that's going to act as a little bit of glue as well. So now that we have our circle, imagine you're looking at a bouquet of flowers. So we want the edge of the bouquet of flowers to be at your belly button. So I'm going to take one side of it. I start with the right side because I do, and I fold it over. So now you can see that you're making a couple of points. So one is here and one is there. And now I'm going to meet that point on the bottom that faces you. This one got a little crumbly. And this is kind of like your bouquet of flowers. And I overlap the 2 points. I want to kind of overlap all of my edges so that it holds itself in. Almost like when you're closing a box without tape, where you alternate the flaps on top. That's what I want to do with my Hamantashen. So now I'm going to just close kind of the envelope on top of my flowers. And so this side is going to go over and this side will go under. So this is the classic fold, but then I don't want to take any chances. And so I will also pinch my edges as well. Pinch, pinch, pinch. So I folded going over one another, making sure that they were overlapping and alternating. And then I pinch. I don't know how people just pinch with a circle. That makes me too anxious. And so I like to do all of the things. And that includes also, I will typically let them sit in the fridge for about 10 to 15 minutes or the freezer just to make sure that they're really going to stay together. So that is one style, but wait till you see what it looks like with the hexagons. You're never going to do it like this again. We could just throw this one out. Throw it out, get rid of it. So with the hexagons, what I like, so I'm going to do the exact same thing with my water. Just paint around the edges. Put my tablespoon of fill or teaspoon of filling in the center. I'm bringing it into my hand. And the points of the hexagon help to guide us where to go. So again, just like that bouquet of flowers, I want one of the points leading towards me. And I'm going to just fold that together and pinch. And then alternating so that this is my next point. I'll do more, don't worry. Pinching that together. And finally, this one. So I think that these ones actually look a lot nicer because the hole on top where you can see the filling is a little bit larger. So I'll do that one again so you can see. So I think with this dough, aiming for a 1/4 inch thickness is going to be your best bet because it's just a little more fragile, but you'll see if you end up making it that it's just so much more tender because of the cocoa powder. It's very dark chocolatey, which is my favorite. And everything I do, I have to eat. So I have to make sure that I want to eat it first. Okay, so here's our hexagon again. Put our teaspoon of filling in the center. And pinch that bottom point together. Skip these two and pinch the next one. And then pinch this top one. There we go. This one's nice looking.
Very nice.
It's always harder on a camera than in real life because I usually will just do this while I'm talking to someone on the phone, and it's a little more mindless, but that's how it goes. So we'll do that again. And I'm going to just keep doing all of these. So, and I can keep talking about Hamantashen, then also my book. And if anyone has questions while I fold, you're welcome to ask because I've got some folding to do. Yeah, the hexagon is amazing. I can't believe that it took me this long to figure it out. I think I saw that it was Bread's Bakery.
Yeah.
That does it like this. And they have a big hexagon cutter. And I was starting to make Hamantashen and I was like, wait, what? Why can't I do that at home? And I think the worst part about making Hamantashen is rolling it out over and over and over again because your dough just gets so dry. And so this is very exciting. So
they had mesmerizing videos last year of the cutter going over the dough. It was like insane, but I didn't know real people could do this. Like that was just like an industrial bakery thing.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because last year, so my book came out a year ago yesterday. And so last March, I probably did 10 plus events about making Hamantashen. And I feel silly that it took me to get to this year to find this genius hack because I feel like I would have killed it last year showing this. So I'm just banking on this year, really. Because I was making my fudgy Hamantashen 2-3 times a week for my book tour. And it was bananas. So it would have been a lot faster probably with this. That is a pretty great recipe though. And it never really opens that one. But this is much easier. And this dough won't spread very much. So I'll grab a second tray when I'm ready to bake them, but they won't need too much space in between each of them.
How is the dough not sticking to the other pieces on the tray?
It was pretty floured, honestly. I floured it a little bit heavily, and I mean, this one's ugly. I'm going to toss that one. It's just floury. Yeah, just as long as you roll it with enough flour, and it's a pretty high fat dough too. And it was never sticky or tacky. Just going to grab my son some more milk from the fridge. One moment.
Of course.
Thank you. The milkmaid and man we're at his beck and call. Poor little guy had some vaccines this week, so he's being happy. So he doesn't really want to eat anything. He just wants to throw everything I make him and drink milk. I think that's just what it is.
He might not throw these Hamantashen.
No, I don't think he would. I don't think I'll give him one. I'll give him the opportunity, honestly.
You're precious.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So as I mentioned, my book came out last year, and if anyone's looking for Passover inspiration, especially if there are any vegetarians or specialty diets at your table, it's probably a good thing to flip through, whether you buy it, go to the library, see if they have it and flip through it. It's all vegetarian, but 80% of it is vegan or easily vegan modifiable. And many of the desserts can also be made with gluten-free flours as well. And so
I am obsessed with the fact that you have Passover black and white cookies in this book.
That's one of my favorites. And Passover's always been my favorite holiday. And I just feel like we get kind of in our rut, like oh, well, my grandmother used to make this Passover cake or this or that or the macaroons, but they always just kind of sit on the table and nobody really wants it. And after such a big, mess that one up, a big heavy meal, I just want like a little snack. I just want a little something sweet, nothing too big. And so I love the black and whites because it's really just like an almond flour based vegan cookie. So I make them all year round because it's just a different way of enjoying a black and white. But I would say that's one of my top desserts and the one that I make the most probably at home because I don't have a big sweet tooth myself, and that one isn't too sweet at all. So that's been fun, and it's always been fun to kind of reimagine some of the dishes that I had growing up during Passover, but with vegetarian options. So somebody's asking, how does a top cook being open? Does it get dry or crunchy? No, the pistachio butter kind of solidifies a little bit more. And so it becomes less liquidy, the inside, which makes it easier to eat. So right now the pistachio butter is a little bit loose, but it'll firm up once it's cooked. That's a great question. So yeah, I've got the Passover black and whites. Depending on also with Passover, what you eat, I feel like Passover is a very personal holiday. I grew up in an Ashkenazi family, and then I married a Sephardic, probably on purpose. Obviously, I married him on purpose, but I think Passover had something to do
For
with
the
it.
rice, for the rice.
You know what? I'll eat beans, but I cannot mentally wrap my head around eating rice.
Huh.
It's like I can hear my grandmother's voice in my head anytime I think about it, and she's like, "Don't do it." So I don't know why, but I'll eat beans. So everyone Passovers a little bit differently. And so depending on how you Passover, I definitely add different variations in the book because we are all very passionate about how we Passover. But no rice. And also some rabbis have also said, like, if you're vegan or vegetarian, like you have a little bit of leeway eating beans because you need the protein. And so I definitely take that to heart because one year I tried to not, and I was vegan at that time. And I was like, what am I supposed to eat? Like literally just matzah and almond butter. So it's definitely person dependent, but I have a great brisket recipe that's made with mushrooms and tofu. I do a herbed horseradish salad, which is fennel and different greens and herbs. And then I make this like really addictive, crunchy topping with almonds and sunflower seeds and garlic. So it's almost like a crouton. And then the dressing is made using horseradish, honey, and lemon juice. That one's, oh my God, there's a hair in that one. That one is very delicious. I made that one for dinner last week. So lots of different ways to Passover. And it's always been fun to hear from people who have said, I haven't been able to eat Passover with my family, or I just get stuck eating kugel every year. And now there's something a little bit different that I can try. So we're making our way through our Hamantashen. These get baked at 350 for about 15 to 17 minutes, just until they're set. You're not going to see like any golden brown on top because they're already so dark. But you will see that this pistachio filling is set and they should hold their own when you pick one up, and then just let them cool on the tray. I personally will make Hamantashen well in advance and just freeze them for up to like, you can up to 3 months. I usually will make them a week or two in advance so that I don't have to think about it. And I will just defrost them at room temperature overnight. So just the hexagons are definitely easier just to do the pinching. For my finger doesn't want to, my finger keeps getting stuck. I don't know if anyone, that one's ugly. That my husband eats the ugly one, so he gets that little corner.
It's true love.
It is true love. He always gets the ugly things. I give away the nice things and give him the ugly ones. It's like,
They all taste the same, right?
exactly. Exactly. In fact, I probably spent more time on that ugly one than I would have on the nice ones anyways. So even today I was making a meal for a woman in our neighborhood who just had a baby. And we just kind of ate the dregs of whatever was on the bottom of the pot that I made because I wanted her to have the nice things and I left us the ugly ones. Our hands are a little bit above.
There it is.
Perfect. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions about Hamantashen as I keep going? Do I have savory recipes for Hamantashen? Someone asks. Yes. So I feel like Hamantashen are really just a vehicle for whatever you want them to be. I have one that is everything bagel. So it's filled with cream cheese with chives, and you sprinkle everything bagel seasoning on top, which is fun. And then I also have one that is a honey and goat cheese with,
Wow.
and then there's sesame on the outside and inside the dough. So that one's kind of fun if you're doing some sort of cheese board, then you can add that to your cheese board as well. And then of course you can always just take pizza dough and make it into a triangle and call that a Hamantashen. And with Purim also, you don't have to limit yourself to just Hamantashen either. It's often that we're eating things that are hidden and vegetarian, because Queen Esther was vegetarian and that's how she kept kosher, was under the guise of just being vegetarian. And so eating a vegetarian bean-based dish is one way to celebrate Purim, and also a dish that's like hidden. So let's say a kreplach, or I made little lentil and carrot empanadas with harissa this year. I've made other little empanada type things, and just things that are hidden. So whether you want to eat dumplings or something a little unexpected, that's another way that you can celebrate Purim as well, not just with a sweet Hamantashen. I like to make it themed for the entire holiday. And so I think that Purim is like the perfect holiday for me personally, because our heroine was a Jewish vegetarian woman, and I relate to that. And she was also what I imagine to be a badass, sassy woman, which I also
100%.
think, well, maybe a sassy more than anything, but I think it's very much a feminist holiday. So it's nice to celebrate that for what it is as well. So I'm going to do one more before I pop them in the oven. Okay. Last year with Tablet, I did the vegan one for families and kids. But if anyone has grandkids or little kids as well, there's a lot of different ways to make Hamantashen just easier on everyone in the family. One thing that you can do is, actually, that one's ugly too. I'm just giving up the ugly ones, is you can buy frozen pie dough and make Hamantashen using that as well. That's a nice way to just skip some steps. And cut them into circles or hexagons and fill them with a jam or pistachio or whatnot. So I'll often do that when I do like kids classes, or even by me, depending on where you are, there's a kosher bakery that I've learned that will sell you Hamantashen dough. So if you don't want to do all of this by hand, you still have the option to have a almost homemade dough as well. And if you've ever taken a class with me, I do a lot at the Nosher, but I've always said whatever way makes it easiest and most sustainable for you to enjoy a holiday or a traditional dish is the best way for you to make it. So I just did a 4-part series on Ashkenazi classics, and we did the classic version and then like a cheater halfway homemade version. So that was using puff pastry for knishes. It was making kreplach using dumpling wrappers. It was doing what else did I make? Blintzes using pre-made crepes, all these sort of things. And I also say at the end of it, if a Trader Joe's blintz is the best way for you to get a blintz on your table and make you think of whoever made you blintzes once, that's the best way to do it. So if you want to take any shortcut, because that's what makes it easiest for you, be my guest. I've always said, especially being the person who does vegetarian Jewish food has always been adapting. It's always been changing. It's always been moving with the times and where we are and where we've been kicked out of. If we've had oil, if we've had no bread, it's always adapting. So my adaptation is to make it more palatable for me, a vegetarian mom in her 30s, and maybe the next generation who will eat a little less meat. But it also means that it might be your way of adapting it is taking those shortcuts. And I think that that's what makes Jewish food so beautiful, is that it's made to adapt. So you do you. I love that. And so I see somebody ask, what about egg roll wrappers? I don't think that would work. I think when we bake them, they'd get too crunchy. I have even tried using Pillsbury sugar cookie dough. They definitely spread a little bit more than I wanted to. Instead of the egg roll wrappers, I would suggest using pie dough. It's going to just keep its shape a little bit easier. And actually this year, Purim's on Pie Day, which is like 3.14. So I just saw Midrash Manicures. If you don't follow her, Rabbi Yael, she's awesome. She just made like little cute hand pies for Purim as well. And she's just like a lovely human, and
Yeah.
would definitely recommend getting her jammies and also following her.
Her pajamas are the most comfortable. I love them.
My son just started to fit into his matzah jammies. So it's like January onwards, it's just going to be matzah jammies until he can't wear them anymore because they're so.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone's looking for like a little, I mean, she has adult sizes too, but especially like little kid holiday gift, she makes and designs the cutest little Jewish jammies for adult. I have a Shabbat pair that she gave me when I was pregnant, so they don't fit anymore. But I could probably give them to my husband. Yeah, Midrash Manicures. And then, so Nancy's asking, do I teach virtually? And if so, where can I find the class schedule? So I often teach for the Nosher with My Jewish Learning. And so if you're on their mailing list, you'll find out. Then I also put all of my events and classes on my Substack as well. There's a page called Upcoming Events because I'm traveling all the time. So the reason that this was on a Thursday was because I often do programming on the weekends. So last weekend I was in Phoenix, I think. I was in Phoenix doing a program, and so I'm kind of all over the place. So I might even be coming to where you are, then we could do this in person as well. If you're in Omaha, Nebraska, I will be there at the end of the month. Any takers? Florida, I'll be in Tampa. So I'm kind of always somewhere. Boston, I'll be, Tampa, Omaha, Utica, New York, the Hamptons, New York in May. So hopefully I'll see Tanya.
I love that.
Yeah, I travel a lot for the book, and now that I've started to do this, and this is what my bread and butter is, for lack of better terms, and I do a lot of teen classes. I travel a lot for BBYO. So if anyone has teens or teens in their life who have done BBYO, I do a lot of teen things. I think they like me because I'm small and young. And so maybe they think that I can relate to them more, but little do they know I'm like texting my husband about bath soap for my baby, or telling him where the bottles are for half of our session together. A mother's work is never done.
For
So
sure.
I'm going to bake these once I leave you, but I'll send Tanya some photos so that we can share them with you guys. So I'll probably take away a third of these just to give them a bit more space on the tray. Put them between the two trays. And again, it's $3.50 for 15 to 17 minutes. I personally like mine a little on the softer side, so I usually go closer to 15 minutes. But then you can drizzle them with chocolate if you want. I think that they're chocolatey enough without it. And if you want other inspiration for Hamantashen recipes, I have a bunch on my website, my Substack, and then my vegan one in my book. And yes, I put them on parchment paper because I don't want to clean up after. Parchment paper is great. Oh, so somebody saw me last year in Brookline. Amazing. If you are in Boston, I'll be at Lair House in Somerville talking about vegetarian Passover on April 6th. So I'm super excited. Lair House, if you haven't been, is such an amazing event space. And it is a kosher dairy restaurant. So for me, it's like everything is pretty much safe because I also do indulge in some fish sometimes. And they have such a great learning model there where we're going to do the session in the morning and a demo. And then throughout the day, they'll have some of my recipes as specials for you to eat. So I think that will be a really fun fun event. And I'm just personally looking forward to eating there because they have a beet pastrami Reuben. I make one with celery root. And so, but I also love their beet one. It's delicious and beets are a little easier to find as well. So Kathy, I'm so glad that you could be on this too. It's like you get me twice in a year. Who knew? We've never even.
Elizabeth is on here, and I met her at Lair House, and I'm obsessed with Lair House. I wish it was everywhere. It's so fabulous. And they have a lactate, a little lactate vending machine.
Yes, they do. I've seen that. I saw it and I've been looking for one of those little vending machines on Facebook Marketplace ever since because it's like the running joke in my house. I have a big bowl of lactate pills on the table at all times. And it always reminds me when I like pass it around, I feel like I'm a swinger, but really it's just lactate. And so I saw that vending machine and I've definitely been searching for a vintage gumball machine that I can make into my own lactate dispenser because it's genius. And I too suffer from lactose intolerance.
We Jews have many strengths, and
It's funny because I started my I guess intro into vegetarianism when I was 12 because like every good Jewish girl I had tummy problems, and so I was like maybe I'll stop eating meat, and that's what catapulted me into learning about vegetarian food and becoming interested in cooking my own meals and all of these things. So I have to give credit to my Ashkenazi digestive system for getting me to this point in my life as well. And sometimes I do think being lactose intolerant is a blessing in disguise because I'm just less of a sweet person because I want to make sure it's totally worth it if I'm going to take a lactate. So I think it's somewhat of a blessing in disguise, but this has been so much fun. I'm so glad that I got to remake these after my dog ate them, and I can add these to my Mishloach Manot this year. So I'm very grateful that you all took time out of your evenings to spend with me as I made a mess in my kitchen and made some Hamantashen.
Thank you for making us feel like the BBYO kids and giving us joy. And this is so exciting. I can't wait to get the links from you to share with the group, and we'll share links for the book are in the chat as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, super well organized. I highly recommend it. And just so appreciate that you took the time out of your busy schedule and bedtime to come be with us. So thank you again, and happy Purim to you. And thank you for everything you do.